Good afternoon, everybody. This is live breaking news on Hurricane Sam as Hurricane Hunter aircraft have just measured a 932 millibar minimum pressure. It's possible that could be quality controlled, but it sure does look accurate. And I do think that this hurricane continues to intensify and it might be making a run at Category 5. You can definitely see that eye constricting in this latest image. It's likely beginning an eye wall replacement cycle. You can see the larger eye starting to constrict the eye inside, and when it does constrict, though, the winds inside the eye wall will even ramp up even further. So it is possible that it's making a run at Category 5. It's not official by the National Hurricane Center, and in fact, I probably think it is going to be kept at a high-end Category 4, as it does look like it is beginning that eye wall replacement cycle. Here you can see that outer ring. That's the outer eye there showing up here on the mid-level water vapor satellite imagery, but you could definitely see that constricting eye, and it is starting to lose that dryness a little bit, which also tells me that that inner eye is starting to get constricted and starting to get choked out by this eye wall replacement cycle that is beginning right now, but a very impressive outflow pattern. Look at the outflow there, moving in a clockwise direction where the counterclockwise cyclonic spin here in the northern hemisphere of this really powerful hurricane definitely is. Continues to intensify, and it is making that curve off to the northeast. Bermuda still needs to keep a very close eye on this storm, but the latest models do appear to be taking the storm just a little bit to the east of Bermuda, which would be some good news. Let me show you this system here in infrared. Basically, the dark colors there are colder cloud tops, and you can certainly see that eye wall replacement cycle that's about to begin, but this is about as organized as hurricanes can get. Look at that stadium effect. They're clearly apparent in the infrared satellite here, but you can see those cloud tops warming just a little bit in that very inner eye wall, as that eye is certainly starting to constrict just a little bit, and then this outer eye wall will become dominant, and you can see some of the colder cloud tops here with that outer eye wall. Definitely colder than the inner eye wall right now, and we've been seeing this here throughout the day, so this is definitely a substantial attempt here at an eye wall replacement, and we're finally starting to see that choking out of the inner eye. But as it constricted, that's when the Hurricane Hunter aircraft there, and it looked like they may have been just a little bit of the south of the center, unless it's a little bit off based on infrared satellite, but they did measure that extrapolated pressure, sea level pressure of 932 millibars, which would be the lowest yet here recorded inside of this hurricane. I still think that it is a high-end Category 5, but there's certainly, or a high-end Category 4, excuse me, but there is a chance that it could be upgraded there. And here is that recon data from the tropicaltidbits.com website, and you can see that red. That's the mean sea level pressure dipping down below 940, almost to 930 millibars. And that shows you the lowest pressure so far measured by this storm. So let's take a look now at some of the forecast tracks and see how those models have evolved during the day today with powerful Hurricane Sam. And also the long-range models are showing the potential of a Caribbean tropical cyclone developing about October 8 through 10 time frame. And that could be something that could eventually slide into the Gulf of Mexico too. So we'll have to keep a close eye on that. October 8 through 10. I'm hoping that the Dominator 4 will be completed and ready by then. There are some part shortages happening right now with Dominator 4. That's why it's going to take until the second week of October, it looks like. Maybe even later than that. That's just the estimate with the parts shortages with that with the Dominator 4, the exhaust header that I'm trying to get fixed. And it is very possible that I could have some fumes inside the vehicle from that blown exhaust header, and so that's why it's so important that I get that taken care of. But there you can see the track of the Hurricane Hunter aircraft measuring winds of about 130 knots. I think there's definitely consistent with the current wind intensity, but that pressure dropping in the center of the storm, and it looks like the Hurricane Hunter aircraft too passed just to the south of the eye. This is the Tropical Tidbits website. You can see that this Hurricane Hunter mission is in progress right now, and look at this little bit of a warming temperature inside the eye. They could be inside the eye. That satellite imagery could be off just a little bit, but you could see this rise in temperature there as well, just in the bottom portion of your screen, coincident with that minimum pressure. And that's because you have a lot of sinking air inside the eye, a lot of drying air as well inside those eyes. And that's what the water vapor imagery is definitely showing us as well. So let me readjust this a bit, see what the National Hurricane Center says. First, let's look at the forecast models here for really quickly for Hurricane Sam. Absolutely textbook structure there. Minimum pressure as of the last update was down to 938 millibars, and Hurricane Hunter aircraft suggests that it is intensifying even further. So here are the 12Z GFS ensemble members, and you can see that we no longer have those one or two different members that were curling the system back to the west toward Nova Scotia. And the latest models have been a little bit less aggressive with the development of that cutoff flow there off the northeast, which would have bent the system back on its northern side, and instead more of a sheared out progressive system that slides in over the top of that strong Bermuda high. And that causes Hurricane Sam to not turn off to the northwest, but instead to recurve, maybe turning to the northwest up near Newfoundland. Some of the models are showing that closed low, closing off just a little bit further to the northeast, maybe up toward Nova Scotia, and that would bring that system back to the northwest, Newfoundland, maybe northern portions of Nova Scotia, but a majority of those members recurve the system to the east of Bermuda, but you still have a couple of those members showing a very strong hurricane passing to the west of Bermuda, which would bring the strongest portion of that storm right over the island. That would be absolutely devastating if that happened, but chances are the system should pass just to the east, and it looks like a cluster of ensemble members there, very close to the island of Bermuda, but just to the east, and that would bring potentially the inner core over the island. But at least right now, way off to the southeast near 50 degrees west, the inner core is quite compact with the system. But I think as it undergoes this eye wall replacement cycle, squeezes out that compact inner eye, and then you see the outer eye wall start to take over. I think we'll see the wind fields expand a little bit, and we'll start to see a slowly evolving structure with this hurricane, possibly becoming an annular hurricane, one of those canes with a really big eye as it gets up further into the higher latitudes of the subtropics up near 30 degrees north. There into the north of that, then it'll begin to transition into an extratropical cyclone. And here's the intensity models. Really, none of those models bring it up to a Category 5. They just hold it there right at about 130 knots. Latest Hurricane Hunter aircraft corroborates that estimate as well, even though that pressure continues to fall. Sometimes the pressure will fall in these hurricanes, and then there will be a little bit of a lag in the wind speed adjustment. So the pressure will fall, that pressure gradient will still tighten, and then the wind speeds will adjust a little bit after that with hurricanes. So it's possible that's a sign that this hurricane is intensifying. Here are the 12Z GEPS tracks as well. There you can see Bermuda still has a couple of those model forecast members sliding just to the west of Bermuda, which would be an absolute devastating scenario there for Bermuda. But a majority of those clusters are even further east. The GEPS shifting to the east, continuing that trend, which is a good sign for Bermuda. Definitely a good sign for the northeastern U.S., where we don't have that cutoff low over the northeast, bending the system back over the north side. So that's very good news as well. And let's take a look at the National Hurricane Center forecast track. We do have a lot of disturbances out there. If you pull up the 5-day graphic here, look at these waves coming off during monsoon season. West Africa, Sahel region there. You get these MCSs, or complexes of storms, similar to like the ones that we'll chase over the Corn Belt during the late summer, except obviously much deeper into the tropics there, and very relevant for tropical meteorology here in the tropical Atlantic. But we've got a couple of other disturbances, a couple of tropical waves that we need to keep an eye on. And as I said, those long-range models are showing the Caribbean Sea having a potential low pressure, maybe a developing tropical cyclone about the October 8 through 10 time period. And that would bring a tropical cyclone into the Gulf of Mexico. Gulf Coast, we certainly need to keep an eye on that. It's very possible that we could get a late season hurricane there moving north out of the very warm waters of the Caribbean and the Gulf, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. But here's Sam, 938 Waiting for the update here on the National Hurricane Center to update that pressure. But look at the forecast cone. Definitely includes Bermuda next weekend, early the following week, potentially like a Monday, but probably next weekend because it's going to be accelerating toward Bermuda. Probably a Saturday where there could be impacts there. Bermuda located at about 65 degrees west. Max sustained winds as of the 5 p.m. advisory, 150 miles an hour. So shy of a Category 5, but it is possible you can gain that 6 miles an hour and get up to a Category 5 as well. Here's what the Hurricane Center discussion says. Sam has found a way to intensify today. Ring of intense convection has expanded. Colder cloud tops as well around the center. Strong eye wall convection tightly wrapped around a small eye. That radar imagery from the Hurricane Hunter aircraft. And it wouldn't take much further expansion of the convection in the cooling cloud tops over the innermost core of SAM for it to become a rare Category 5. Late season out there, potentially heading toward Bermuda. Of course, it would weaken a little bit by the time it would approach the island of Bermuda. Probably like a Category 3, maybe a Category 4 storm. And most of those models are trending a little bit to the east of the island of Bermuda as well, which is some good news. But it is plausible over the next few days, strengthening into a Category 5 could happen. And it is possible that this Hurricane Hunter aircraft data that we are looking at live here could very well be the tipping point there with that pressure fall of about 6 millibars to tighten up that pressure gradient even more and potentially lead to the rare Category 5 storm out there. So let's take a look now at the overall pattern here. Right now, and the hurricane is off the screen there. Big high off to its northeast, steering it off to the northwest. And it's moving very slowly northwest over the next several days. And here's the GFS. And this is the 18Z GFS now. Let me make sure that you can see the storm there. You can see it just below me. And this is just the operational model. We already looked at the 12Z ensembles here. But here you can see SAM, possible Category 5 SAM over the next few days. Here you can see a massive high off to its north. It's going to continue to accelerate the system off to the northwest. Eventually turning to the north as well. There it is, approaching the island of Bermuda. Bermuda's about right there, so a little bit to the east of Bermuda. So the 18Z GFS shifting even, at least the operational GFS, shifting just a little bit to the east of the island of Bermuda. Oh boy, is that going to be close. And definitely that forecast cone includes the island. But hopefully it'll shift off to the east. Of course, it depends on the positioning of this massive anticyclone, and it's sliding off to the east across the North Atlantic, opening up a highway off to the north for this storm to turn to the north, hopefully just a little bit to the east of the island of Bermuda, but it is going to be very close there. Very close. It's hard to tell if that's a dot, a piece of dust on my screen or not, but I'm pretty sure that was Bermuda. And look at this squeeze play happening between the high pressure off to the east. You can look at a trough here, looking at the upper levels, upper troposphere. So here's this trough here that previous models, at least last week, were showing the southern end of that trough becoming a cutoff low there off the northeastern U.S. It's still cut off, but thankfully it shifted well to the northeast up here. So any bend back to the northwest would probably be up toward Newfoundland, at least with this model. Some of the last week's GFS models were showing that closing off of this upper level low a little bit further south, which could have bent SAM like the spoke of a wheel back toward the northwest and even potentially impacting portions of the northeastern U.S. here. But with this closed low over the Canadian Maritimes, any bend back would be dependent on this upper level low becoming dominant, warm convection downstream of it, building that ridge, and then getting that buckled pattern that would bend that tropical cyclone off to the northwest like a spoke in the wheel. Here's the wheel right here, spinning over Nova Scotia. This is by late next weekend. There's the island of Bermuda, unless that's a dust speck. Nope, that's it right there. And there is Sam. That's weakening here, transitioning into an extratropical system. But it could slingshot this back northwest toward Newfoundland. And it looks like that's exactly what it's going to do with this close upper level low. That's why some of these forecast models have even compared this to a Hurricane Sandy, because that was a later season storm that was hot near Halloween. You basically had that upper level low that closed off much further south, though, near the mid-Atlantic of the United States, and then it took a powerful Hurricane Sandy and then was able to slingshot it into the coastline here, bringing with it a prolific storm surge down into New Jersey, portions of Long Island as well. In this case, the upper level low is much further to the northeast, up near Nova Scotia, but there you can see Sam, little spoke on a wheel. You can see this ridge axis here building upstream of this low that's getting closed. Once it's perfectly closed, you're not going to have that warm advection upstream, but it is going to be building this ridge axis here out ahead of it, and that very easily could slingshot a Sam into Newfoundland and kind of just become this circulating closed low here, centered over Nova Scotia. Very unsettled weather out there over the Canadian Maritimes, and definitely could be a closed low on steroids, infused by that Hurricane Sam there, which spins around like a spoke on a wheel. But this is just one model run, just the 18Z GFS, which is an updated GFS, but it is trending from the 12Z run. Ooh, it does have a much more closed upper level low, but it is further off to the northeast. So that's why we've got a couple of those GFS ensemble members that bend Sam back toward Newfoundland. So the operational GFS is a little bit further west. And this is the 12Z GFS just for the sake of comparison. 18Z has a more robust upper level low. So it kind of went back to a slightly more similar evolution to last week, but further northeast with that closed upper level low. But this is way out there, over a week out. So there's a lot of uncertainty still with this system. And that's why we just got to keep watching it. Looks like the 12Z GFS is similar, even though it's just off screen, but with that closed upper level low over the Canadian Maritimes. So that's the update. Breaking news. Minimum pressure down, falling, it appears, another 6 millibars inside an intensifying Hurricane Sam. Any eye wall replacement cycles likely would prevent this system from attaining Category 5 intensity, at least temporarily. But as this eye constricts and that pressure falling another 6 millibars, I wouldn't be surprised if we are able to squeeze out another 6 miles an hour out of this system. Buzzsaw there, but it definitely does look like you're starting to get some warming cloud tops over a larger radius in that inner eye, and that would suggest that we are about to begin an eye wall replacement cycle. But a lot of cold cloud tops up here, very healthy, symmetric system, outflow, gravity waves out here, transverse bands within those cirrus clouds. And I do have a live Q&A coming up here, 6 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, for Facebook supporters exclusively. So I'm excited about that. Always a fun time. They're supposed to be weekly, but Hurricane Ida, Hurricane Nicholas got in the way a little bit. Smoking a lot of meat as well here recently. Probably going to get gout if I keep eating all this meat. But there you can see that outer eye wall with those very cold cloud tops there. What will likely happen is you'll see this eye constrict a little bit and then just start spinning around inside, almost like a subvortex. And then you'll see this outer eye wall get more and more healthy. Cloud tops cool on it, probably wrap all the way around. And then you'll get one of those monster eyes, just an absolutely beautiful hurricane out there. And the good news is that at least this is over the open Atlantic, so it's only impacting those shipping interests right now. Of course, the island of Bermuda needs to keep a close eye on it. Newfoundland, I would also keep a very close eye on this, even Nova Scotia as well, with that potential anticipated bend back off to the northwest. But that's the latest here with Hurricane Sam, and I look forward to seeing Facebook supporters coming up here in just a few minutes. Looks like about 30 more minutes coming up. So thank you very much for joining me, everybody. Never stop chasing.